Hello, my name is Jeff Sislo, and I am a paraprofessional in the Douglas County School District in Colorado. In today's classrooms, teachers and adults are the role models for the students of today and leaders of tomorrow. If we teach them just how to study and get by on tests, then that will be the results we see outside of the classroom. In an article by Ira Wynn, he refers to this as students learning to play the game of going along just to get along. We must be the leaders to create the environment for a higher level of critical thinking in today's classrooms. In this presentation, we will be discussing the importance of increasing critical thinking in the classrooms of today. Although there are several learning disabilities that limit the speed or level at which a student can improve upon, with strategic approaches, students can increase their level of critical thinking. Because of the subject of critical thinking covering such a broad range of topics, we will cover just three main areas. First, why is there such a concentrated effort to increase critical thinking in the classrooms? Secondly, what are the differences between critical thinking and fundamental skills? And finally, what are the challenges of implementing critical thinking strategies in a classroom environment? To begin, we will explore why there is such a concentrated effort to increase critical thinking in the classrooms. Because of the advances in technology and the pace at which it is advancing, it is driving the need to stay competitive in the world markets of today. In many governments, the main reason is the pressure to raise educational standards and increase testing scores. In the United States, it has become increasingly important to decrease the educational gap between the U.S. and nations like Japan. Next, we will discuss the differences between thinking and fundamental skills. It is common for fundamental skills that are practiced daily in the classrooms to be confused with critical thinking. Fundamental skills are the repetitive performance of tasks that can be improved upon with practice. Though fundamental skills are important in the thinking process, they are not the same. As stated by Kwame Levy, thinking involves dispositions such as perseverance, courage, and hope. Effective critical thinking is the approach to a complex problem or situation and finding strategic approaches to solve them. It is not the reciting of fundamental skills that have been memorized in the classrooms. Next, this visual aid illustrates where the U.S. ranks in science and math. As you can see, the U.S. is behind Asian schools due mainly to their approach in the classrooms. Asian schools are much stronger at teaching concepts instead of being bound to the textbooks and just memorizing and repeating facts. Because American schools have taught more memorization, implementing a critical thinking strategy will present several obstacles that will be difficult to overcome. Let's look at a few of those obstacles. Critical thinking creates a gap for controversial discussions. Wynn states in his article that critical thinking is usually considered to be impolite or not nice, and therefore avoided by teachers in the classrooms. However, these are the issues that are the foci that make the curriculum meaningful and keep it alive. Because of the more open structure of critical thinking environments, lesson planning, the daily school day, the school year, all must be modified to accommodate this style of teaching. Instead of the focus being on covering the entire textbook, focus must be redirected to gaining a better understanding of the content and the concepts within the textbook. An example of that would be a math teacher assigning numbers 1 through 25 in the math book, instead of picking 3 to 4 problems to really dive in and understand the concept of a certain topic. Though adopting and implementing a critical thinking approach in the classroom proves to be a formidable task, the process is effective and must begin with the teachers leading our students. Because global competition is increasing exponentially, it is becoming increasingly important for teachers to be on the cutting edge of teaching to prepare our students to compete in a global market with nations like Japan. Also, teachers must understand that teaching fundamental skills, although important in the overall process, are not teaching critical thinking, but instead are just showing students how to get by. In closing, much of the research states we need to get back to basics. This approach must be replaced, regardless of the student's current level and approach to thinking. Critical thinking must be introduced to students to empower them to think deeper into problems and issues, and to prepare them for the fast-paced and quickly changing global market they'll encounter after graduation. With that, we're going to go to a couple questions now.
What is the main challenge you think the education system faces in trying to implement the critical thinking approach in the classroom?
Great question. Changing the culture and expectations of administration and teachers will be one of the main ones. Getting them to refocus on just covering the entire textbook versus diving into the concepts and the content of the textbook and just having a better understanding of it. To accomplish this, as we said before, changes will need to be made to the lesson planning, to the daily schedules, and to the yearly schedules, which will, I'm sure, create quite controversy amongst teachers and administration, and even parents for that matter. And our second question?
Can students with special needs or learning disabilities benefit from the critical thinking strategy?
Another great question. Yes, results, again, they'll vary from student to student, but this approach will allow them to discuss problems in a more effective way and in deeper ways. This will give these students the ability and the tools they'll need to understand the complex world after they encounter, or once they graduate. And with that, that'll conclude our presentation.